The Ford Bronco is everywhere ever since it got its refresh a couple years ago. But with that refresh came the Bronco Sport, which is a new addition in the Bronco line that does not really match up with the original that much. But does that mean it's a bad car? Well, that's what we're here to find out with this 2024 Ford Bronco. My name is Jason, and you're watching Got an X. Now, the front of the Bronco Sport, in my personal opinion, is nothing crazy. I mean, it just kind of looks like a mini Bronco, but that's not a bad thing. That's kind of what they were going for, and it's not something I'm going to hate on directly. But there are a bunch of things that don't really look that good. I'm going to get over it first and foremost, but this thing is kind of boxy. It honestly reminds me of the Kia Soul, and I know a lot of people are very hateful on the Kia Soul. So if you don't like the Kia Soul, this is kind of just a better looking version of it, which is hit or miss depending on where you're at. Me personally, I kind of have grown on the Bronco Sport. I don't think it looks that terrible, but it's definitely not my favorite looks-wise. The grille is nothing special. The headlights are also nothing incredible. But one thing I do like about this specific Bronco, I know it's not standard on every single one, but is the detailing spread throughout this one. This is the Big Bend, and that means it comes with a bit of features, not that many, not that crazy. It's not the highest trim, it's not the lowest trim. But this one does, in fact, have these extra black accents with the Bronco logo right here, which I really like. And I think the black accents spread throughout the entire car makes it look a little bit better than your traditional Bronco Sport. Now, the engine of the Bronco Sport is nothing spectacular. I mean, I'm not trying to hate on this car because it already gets enough hate. I mean, this thing is unironically despised from most people I talk to about it. But you get 181 horsepower with a 1.5 liter engine, which isn't anything fantastic. I mean, this car is not that heavy, so it's not that bad. This thing can pull a little bit. It gets you where you need to go. But other than that, I mean, it is just going to be a really standard driver. Nothing is spectacular with the engine, but it isn't necessarily bad for the car. I think there are better engine options that you can get with the Bronco that I think do push it a little bit higher, but this baseline one isn't really the best, but it's not the worst. Now, the back of the Bronco Sport looks like it's straight from Minecraft. This thing, unironically, is just a cube, which isn't my favorite design choice. I think the boxy shape does kind of make it look a little bit worse overall, but one thing that is not that bad inside of the Bronco is going to be the trunk space. You have 32.5 cubic feet of trunk space, as well as there's extra add-ons that this one has in particular that covers the trunk space, making it a sealed off section because this is a hatchback and it is connected to the entire car. One of the interesting things that the Bronco Sport does have is the glass opens separately from the trunk itself, so you just have easy access as well if that is something that you're looking for. I have used this, and me and everyone on the Got an X team has used this for rolling shots. We will be sitting in the back of one of these with the shot out, or with the camera pointed out of this. It is a great little feature that has a bunch of uses, and we have found our fair share of uses for the Bronco Sport. So overall, I mean, it is a pretty standard back, but that is a unique feature that I really like about it. Now, the inside of the Bronco Sport is something that is not incredibly spectacular. I mean, there are going to be cheap materials spread through and throughout the car with this soft touch fabric right up here. And I actually kind of really like the soft touch fabric. I just like the way it looks. It's like the hex diagonal, whatever it is called, design. It looks really, really good up here. And I think that's one of the parts that makes it like a little bit less cheap on the inside. The infotainment screen is nothing fantastic. It's a little bit tiny. It doesn't have Apple CarPlay, doesn't have Android Auto. It might, but this one I couldn't figure out. It doesn't have wireless for sure. It might have wired. There are a lot of features lacking in this trim level in particular. This one does not have the heated seats. This one does not have a wireless charger. This one does not have a bunch of the extra accessories that you can get with the Bronco Sport. But I am going to say that that doesn't make it a bad interior. I mean, this is a vehicle that you are paying a pretty reasonable amount for. This one, brand new, 2024, is only $32,000, which I know is it's a bit of money, but it's nowhere near the amount that some other companies are charging for their affordable car options. I think the Bronco Sport isn't a bad option when it comes to that. I mean, for $32,000 brand new, this is a really good car. The gauge cluster is nothing spectacular, though I am going to touch on that. It is a slight digital, slight analog. Gives you a screen in the middle with the two traditional ones on the side. And I don't think that's anything spectacular, but that really is just what the Bronco Sport is. It is a affordable, reasonable car, but it's nothing spectacular. If you want something spectacular, you're going to have to shell out a little bit extra dough, but this would get the job done, and I could see you driving this. I could see a bunch of people driving this as a daily and never having a complaint. Now, before we get to the driving review, I do want to say a few things about the Bronco Sport before I forget. First things first, the Bronco Sport is not a replacement for the Bronco. That is one thing that you're going to notice. This thing does not have the off-road capacity of a Bronco. This thing does not even have the ground clearance of a reasonable Bronco. I mean, this is not a Bronco at the core, but if you take away the fact that it is a part of the Bronco lineup, you can actually start to see that it is a pretty solid car on its own. The driving experience, though, is nothing crazy. You have lane keeping assist, you have blind spot monitoring, you have a bunch of safety features, which I think is really good. I mean, for a vehicle that is going to be running you less than for a vehicle only running you about $32,000 brand new 2024 this year, I think it's pretty good for the amount of features you have. I mean, blind spot monitoring is something that is not equipped on a lot of vehicles. You have to pay that extra little bit for it. And I mean, having this kind of come equipped on these lower trim levels really does show that Ford has put the priorities into good spots. I think the driving experience is also pretty good. I know we're in a box, but it does feel like we have tight turning. It feels like everything is responsive. And overall, I mean, you are in a very solid car at the end of the day when it comes down to it. I think the Bronco Sport really does, if you take it away from being a Bronco, has a pretty solid niche and is a good car overall. Now, you may look at this car and think that it is a bad car. You may think that it doesn't do the Bronco name justice. You may think a lot of these things, but for me, I see it as an affordable option that does give you a little bit of a good design. I personally think the Bronco Sport isn't that bad of a car. I think it gets a lot of unnecessary hate. I think for the price point it goes at, I mean, this one brand new is $32,000. I mean, I think Ford does this with things like the Maverick, where they make an affordable but not perfect option. I mean, this does not do what the Bronco does. It's in its own little category, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Let me know what you guys think about the Bronco Sport in the comments below. If you like the video, leave a like, and we will see you in the next one.